Hey, Joan, are you there?
Hey, Jen, how you doing? Can you hear me?
I can. Hi.
Great.
How are you?
How's it going?
Oh, good. Thanks for your understanding with the reschedule.
Of course, life happens.
After all that, then her game today got rescheduled, so just ended.
Of course.
She's
Well, I hope
down
she
in,
won.
Yeah, they won 5-2. She's down in
Good.
Taunton, so I just texted her. I'm on Do Not Disturb. Are you safe?
Hopefully my kids have that same idea, the do not disturb thing, we'll see.
It's the dog right now that's the bigger problem. The puppy.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. My 4-year-old is on that route, so we'll see.
Wanting a dog?
No, wanting me.
Oh.
So yeah. No, my almost 7-year-old is dying for a dog though. She really, really wants one. So
yeah.
Not right now, but
no, don't cave. Don't. I love her, but it's all you. You're going to be the one taking care of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love all your books behind you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Good little setup.
Yeah, I actually have a question about the cover. If you're involved in that. Yeah. But we can't start yet. I don't want to start yet.
Oh, okay. I don't want to start yet.
No chatting yet. We normally start right at 8, so
okay.
we got like 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we have a new format where we were using the cloud, the Zoom cloud to like share our recordings, and now the thing with that was they were expiring. So
yeah,
we are now moving them to YouTube immediately. So that's good. So we'll forever have this recording, and then
yeah, that's great.
Continue to talk about the book for well past the cloud expiration. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So, yeah.
Finally. This takes time.
I know.
We didn't originally have our own Zoom account. We were using a member's. So that was kind of, we started an affiliate account literally just to kind of fund our expenses, like our Zoom account and all that. So
yeah, it's growing so much. It's really cool to see. And I've been able to catch a few of the chats post live. So they look great so far.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. We have some exciting news, I think. We're going to be in the Wall Street Journal.
That's awesome. Yeah. Congrats.
Kind of crazy. Yeah. Maybe as soon as tomorrow.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. The author that wrote the article messaged today, and she's like, I think it's going in tomorrow. So we'll see.
Yay. Yeah. That's great.
All right. Well, it is 8 o'clock, so people can continue to join, and we have it set so they're muted, hopefully.
Okay.
So good evening, everyone. Tonight, I am so excited to be speaking with Joan F. Smith regarding her debut novel, The Half Orphan's Handbook. A few quick thank yous before we start. Thank you to Jennifer Crowley, and yes, Joan does look beautiful tonight. And Lindsay Gerbaki for their behind the scenes help with the group. And then thank you to all the moms who've already read the novel, recommended it to their friends or teens, or are turning into the recording because you could not join live. And then last but not least, I want to thank you, Joan, for taking the time to join us tonight. Joan and I first met at a mother-daughter charity league meeting this past summer, kind of the first event post-pandemic for me. And she was a guest speaker. And as the mother of two teens, the novel and what Joan had to say, I instantly walked up to her and I was like, I run this book club, it's virtual, and I would love for you to come and talk about this book for the moms in this group that have teens, or just anybody that has been impacted with the theme that we're going to talk about tonight. So, and being the mother of a teen daughter who is similar in age to Lila, there were just so many struggles that I could relate to. And while my daughter has not lost someone personally to suicide, she has a friend who has. And so that also really struck a chord with me. We've had a lot of discussions about how to help with that. And I, in my late teens, lost a friend to suicide. So it's just always been something that's been really personal to me. And I just really felt compelled to share this book. So I will be your biggest champion of this book in this group for a long time coming, because it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And I just think, unfortunately, suicide touches way too many people. So this certainly has a purpose and a place. So with that being said, let's have you, if you're comfortable. I know a little bit about your background, and hopefully you're comfortable sharing a little bit about it as well, just to kind of start us off. So if you could share a little bit of your personal journey, that would be fantastic.
Of course, yeah. I definitely am very vocal about my own experience with losing someone to suicide, because I think not speaking about it was one of the most difficult things that I went through. So I lost my dad to suicide. I was a young adult at the time, and I always knew that I would end up writing about it somehow, but I wasn't exactly sure how. So this book started with the character of Lila Cunningham, and like me, she's got a mom and she's got a little brother. And all I wanted at that time, I was a teenager during the first attempt that I knew about. And when that happened and I discovered all these like really dark things about, my family, and like the things I didn't know about my dad, and all these kinds of addiction problems that he kept very, very hidden, my life really turned upside down, and I was very isolated, and none of my friends had anything like that in their backgrounds yet. As we got older, certainly things have happened, but I was one of the first who I knew personally who was dealing with something like that. So I carried this character Lila around with me for a very long time. And then finally, I became a mom, and I got my MFA, and I started writing this book. And this was actually the first book I ever finished writing. So I created Lila. I sent her to a camp for a grief camp up in Maine. It's modeled after the 9/11 summer camps that don't exist anymore, because the kids who lost parents in 9/11 are now adults. But they did have a grief camp for them. And once they aged out, I was like, oh, that's where I should put Lila. And that's kind of where the story was born.
Awesome. Well, not awesome, your story, but awesome that you're comfortable
to
share it. And then as I recall, you discovered the 9/11 camp? Were you flying somewhere?
Yes, I was. So I had just become a mom. It was my daughter's first really bad fever, and it turned out I had it too, but I didn't know that yet. And we'd gone to the hospital, and it was 24 hours later, and finally got on the plane and read this article, and I was like, oh, that's totally where I should put her.
Come on.
Let me see. Somebody's not on mute. Hang on.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think I just fixed it. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Yeah. So I was on a plane at the time. I always say it's actually in like one of my bios. I do my best writing on airplanes. First, like I have ADHD, so being forced to sit in one spot for like such a long period of time, like really gets me. So I miss pre-pandemic plane travel very much.
And you discovered I think you were reading an article about the camp or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and then it all kind of, yeah. And I mean, I've always been struck by the theme of like we are not our families, and we are not who we came from, except we also are. Like I can't control anybody else's actions but my own. That goes for the family that I came from. It goes for the family I've created. And you know, there are things out there that happen. There are good people who do bad things. There are bad people who do bad things, you know, and everybody has families. So I'm always thinking about, you know, when a tragedy happens, like that person's mother or that person's sister. And that kind of theme was definitely one that ran through that book.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of wanted to start, my first question that I had was, and I think it's fair to say now that you have shared a little bit about your background, is that there's definitely snippets of your personal story and Lila's story, in terms of, you know, her dad passing and yours as well. So, you know, would you call it a little bit autobiographical or not so much?
There are definitely moments in there that are inspired by my own experiences. There's like a scene in a gymnastics thing that is very close to my heart. And I won't say more about that. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but it was a really fun thing for a teen to have access to. And there are definitely like moments in there that, like inside jokes and stuff like that. There are a few names in there, like there's a character with the last name Frothingham, and that's modeled after Frothingham Park in Easton. Like just little things that when my brain didn't have anything, I kind of just like copy pasted my own experiences into it. But I definitely removed a lot in my first editorial stages because at first it would have just read like a memoir basically, and then created like stuff I'd never gone through. And made sure to like really change up those details because I think during the revision process, if it was too close to home, it would have felt like too personal to change a lot of it. So I definitely needed to make sure that I was divorced from it too.
Right. That makes total sense. So let's talk about the role that Lila's handbook plays in the novel and how it evolves. Was that kind of the foundation for you all along for the story, or was that kind of an after the fact?
Yeah, cool question. That's the first time I've gotten this one, I think. I had the first two rules at the top. That was like always a driving force in the construction of the book. And I was an alternate in this contest called Pitch Wars. And one of the authors was like, listen, you have this really like hard-hitting handbook idea here, but you don't carry it from the beginning of the novel to the end by adding to it. You just kind of leave it there and like have those two rules guide her. What about like adding to it as you go? And then something happens with it at the end, and in case anybody hasn't gotten there yet, I won't spoil, but that was actually a like kind of a last minute revision during the pandemic year. Yeah. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, and then just the importance of where like the handbook itself and how she found that and the whole thing is really interesting to me.
Definitely.
So for me, I felt like wondering why plagues the loved ones in the aftermath of, you know, of a suicide. And Lila was really focused on trying to learn why, you know, why her dad did it and took his life. Do you think that she found the closure she needed once she learned of his, you know, kind of disease and mental illness and all of that? Is that the step she needed to heal, or, you know, and can you, I guess, maybe speak personally about that as well?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of what I felt at the beginning was just straight up anger. Like I was really mad that my life changed in a way that I didn't allow it to, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, especially when I first learned about, what my dad was struggling with, I could not reconcile the two people, like the dad I knew and the dad who he was. I mean, my dad, my maiden name is Fagin. Like all of my best friends called my dad Daddy Fagin. They would call him in the middle of the night if they were stuck at a party and couldn't get home. And I would go with him. We would drop them off. Like he was always the guy who you depended on. It took a lot of growth and therapy for me, definitely, to have, to spin more toward like empathy and sympathy for him. And to think about, how broken he must have been. And I just wish that he had been more vocal, the same way Lila does about, she wishes that he had gotten help. And, I truly cannot imagine that kind of struggle, but I wish the same thing. Like, I just really wish he had gotten the help that is out there. Yeah. And like the wondering why, I think, learning that it wasn't, not that she ever really felt like it was her fault, but learning that there was nothing she could have done to prevent it, I think provides closure. And I think that grief is such a nonlinear journey that time and distance and growth like do kind of act as a balm as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, just my personal experience, it was like, from the outside looking in, it looked like she had the perfect life, right? You're like, she was beautiful and she had a great boyfriend and, came from a really good family. And, and so you sit there, even I think from the outside going, gosh, why? And, what could have been so bad, that was the decision that you made. And then, I think even as a friend, you're like, what could I have done? And, what did I miss? And so, yeah, I think the question why obviously, surrounds, suicide when somebody takes their life, but I think it plagues you for a while. So
definitely.
So Lila's relationship also really, I felt like, evolved throughout the book, and it seemed to mirror kind of her stages of grief. Can you talk about this evolution throughout the book? And
yes, with Noah, the love interest. Yeah.
I more felt like with her mom and her brother, specifically right now, as far as like, it evolved, and I think she started to have, to come to grips with, what was her mom at fault at all, and what was her mom hiding from her, and all of those things, and that evolution of that family union. And then we'll get to Noah in a minute.
Yeah.
He's a whole nother
yes,
big topic.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think at the beginning of their grief, like the three of them were kind of trapped in that house at the top. They had all these meals given to them by very well-meaning people, and they were all experiencing like pity in the same kind of way. And Lila makes these observations about her brother Sammy, and like how he used to play basketball with their dad, and like how they used to have these like teasing kind of family moments. And then they're just left, I call it, I think, the table has 4 chairs, only 3 are there now. It's 75% capacity, or however I phrase it, because I mean, it's relatable for me, but it's also definitely, I think, just like the shock stage of grief at the top. Like they're just there and they don't know how to move on. The mom making the decision to send them was, an authority figure, and it's important that she put her foot down, I think, and sent them. And I really wanted the 3 of them to find growth on their own. Like we get hints of what the mom is doing in the background. Like her sister is taking care of her in many ways. She's like doing yoga and wellness stuff and stuff like that.
Right.
Mom things, right? And then we see Sammy, dart in and out of this camp, but this is the first time that he's kind of been given the space to be independent. And I think he really needed that. He's comic relief in so many ways. Their whole family runs a little bit on humor. But he needed to learn like how to be Sammy, but that he didn't have to take care of the whole family. He had this kind of like misguided thought process toward that. And then I think like Lila and Sammy just dip in and out towards each other at camp, and when they see each other, they get a little charge from it, and then they go back. And, you know, I think like there's healing in there for both of them. And then especially when the mom comes back, we can see that there's, you know, happiness on their horizon. It might take a little bit to get there, but yeah.
Yeah. Yes, fortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think the other major theme from the book is truth versus lies, and this is where for me Noah comes into it particularly. And again, I don't want to reveal too much if somebody hasn't finished this yet, but I guess I saw both sides of it. I didn't feel like Noah was blatantly lying to anybody. I just felt like perhaps he wasn't sharing the truth about his situation and why he was there. And so, I think that's an interesting discussion too, right? Is he wasn't necessarily directly lying.
Yes, he never actually outright lies. So I combed through this in editorial, but yes, he lies by omission technically. Right. And he also is very evasive and lets assumptions sit where they are made. But yeah, he never like tells a lie that Lila then carries on as a truth.
Yeah. And so that's interesting to me, because obviously her reaction at a certain point in the book is pretty extreme. And she's pretty adamant. And I guess is that her just, being a teenager and not necessarily, understanding, the fine lines between, the blurry lines maybe, and trying to be kind of hard and fast about nobody lies to me. Or what is your take on her reaction that she had?
Yeah, I mean, her whole life has been like the truth is one color and lie is another, basically. Black and white is the classic. And then like finding the shades of gray is kind of the goal for everybody. But then, we fall into some truths are not true for some people. Some truths are not true for other people. And how do we reconcile like what is a truth that needs to be told and what is something that we keep to ourselves? And like kids especially, I mean, teens are already getting to the point where I think that they've learned that you can that there's steps to truths or steps to falsehoods, and that mostly we are all living in the middle. Kids definitely, I think, classify things that are truths and things that are lies. And I think we're at a point here where her world has been so rocked that her development is a little bit arrested almost. Like she needs to classify things to feel safe again. So holding on to things as truths and things as lies helps her kind of say, all right, categorically, this is good, this is bad. Right. And definitely a learning theme is that life's in the middle.
Yeah. And don't you think, I mean, obviously his situation is different than everybody else that's at that camp. Because he's lost somebody, but not literally. But then has lost somebody as a result, of his family connection. So, I felt for him. I mean, I loved him. I empathized with him, and I was cheering for him the whole time. And when he has to take a little departure for a little bit and then return, I was like, come on, buddy, come back and just explain, which he did, which was awesome. So that was the feel good for me of the book for sure. Because I think ultimately he must have been torn because he didn't feel like any of it was in his control. Not necessarily even his story to tell, right? I mean, he's somebody that's just thrown in this and is a victim, but having to like actively live through it, as opposed to I think everybody else that was there that their situation is in the past. It has happened. It's over. And he's stuck, you know,
yeah,
trying to
in
deal.
some ways, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that he has the worst of it for all of them there. You know, like the repercussions of his loss are not gone. His world has been rocked in the exact same way that many of his fellow campers has, but the loss is not over for him, and life is going to look a lot different moving forward. He's had to kind of, you know, mourn in ways that the other fellow campers haven't, and he also takes advantage of the snooze button concept that I put in. So when he says, like, he tells Lila, like, I am not ready to talk about this, and she takes that at face value. But I think she makes some assumptions based on her own life that he did not give. So there's some miscommunication and some assumed communication between them.
Yeah. In creating his character, is there anybody that, like, did you do some research? Is there anybody that you perhaps talked to that went through something similar?
I didn't talk specifically to people who went through similar things, but I read dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews and watched a bunch of documentaries, mostly for any family whose child or whose you know, significant family member or what have you, any dateline where somebody has been involved in a crime. And like news reports and how media portrays people and families in that situation and that kind of thing. I'm always curious about what angle that will be taken. And, you know, there are people behind the lens there. So I wanted to dig into somebody who was behind the lens and is a good guy, but has a bad lot right now.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, obviously the news right now and the story that's out there, it definitely makes you, think about those families.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, what they're going through on both sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so interesting. All right, so let's talk about the role that the camp and the campers play. That's a good question. I'll get back to that in a minute, Breezy. Very good question. The role the camp and the campers play in the novel for me was pivotal, obviously. You know, and I took it as the camp was creating a space where everyone was on somewhat even ground, and it removed any of the stigmas that the campers had been facing in their real world, if you will. And it enabled them, or gave them the opportunity to then progress through their grief. Because I think in their real worlds, you know, it seemed like they were kind of on that hamster wheel a little bit where they were just stuck. So can you talk about, like, if you hadn't discovered the camp, like on the plane, like where, obviously I think the camp that brought the whole novel together. Is that fair to say? And how you were
I think so.
able to, so do you think them returning year after year to, like, if there was the Half Orphan Handbook Part 2, where would they be next summer?
I think Lila is in a much better zone. She's had regular therapy at that point, I'm imagining, because from what I read and doing so much research about the America's camps post 9/11, it was like the one time all of the campers felt that unity, that shared loss, like that other people in their lives had been through something. There's another one, I think it might be called Camp Judith or something like that. And all of those campers do stay in touch with one another. And now I've seen pictures of them at one another's weddings and stuff like that. So I imagine that, you know, especially with the world the way it is now, like they're following each other on TikTok. They're staying in touch via social media. You know, Lila's in a better place. Winnie's just gone through her first year of college. I imagine Madison to be much more healed that next summer. Hopefully Noah is too. I don't know what the romantic relationship would be like at that point, but there is so something so sweet about like fleeting summer love too. So I do like to keep them in that spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned a really interesting point that I thought was crucial to kind of the grieving process, and that was the fact that their phones didn't work.
Yes.
I mean, again,
Yeah.
as a mother of a teen, like the phone is like, I just, oh, so many bad things happen with the phone. You know, but I loved the fact that they, you know, had to remove themselves from, you know, truly the outside world. And you know, I say it all the time as a mom, like if you just put that thing down and actually had a conversation with somebody, it would be so different, you know.
I know. I know that I was thrilled to knock the phones in that book, not gonna lie. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody is, I'm sure, but it was nice that they had that kind of like old school vibe to it. They had no service, they couldn't use their phones. I mean, they would use them for pictures, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
A Wi-Fi.
and yeah, and so it's funny that you say like they stay connected. Like it would be interesting, you know, to, you know, I don't know, even like 3 months
Yeah,
later, like, you
I
know,
think
once they're back at school.
I think I cut a line from it, but they had been talking about like which pictures they'd be posting, and then at the end of it, and moving forward from there, like the throwbacks that they'd be putting up all year of camp. So, but I
Yeah,
think I cut that. But
yeah. Interesting. Okay, so Breezy would like to know how, if Hollywood makes a movie or a TV show based on this book, and have you any plans for that you've heard of?
Nothing yet. The rights
Yeah.
are currently open, so we'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Then who would you, you know, we ask this question a lot, like, do you envision a protagonist to play Lila, or, you know, if you had a dream casting opportunity, who would it be?
Yes, totally. And actually, it's, oh God, her name is Grace Van Patten. She's currently in the Nine Perfect Strangers miniseries.
Oh, okay.
She plays Zoe in that. When she came on, my husband and I are watching that right now. And when she came on, I was like, oh, there she is, because I had seen her like throughout the years. And my husband actually didn't read this book until it was published, so he didn't read it until April. He refused to read it until it was like the final copy was in his hands. And he, for the first time, saw her and was like, oh, that's the actress that you talked about. So yeah, she just has like the total Lila vibe to me. If it had been 10 years ago, like Shailene Woodley was originally in my mind, but I think she's already aged out of that. Although it's Hollywood, so who knows? So
Right. And what about Noah?
Originally in my brain as well, he would have been played by Noah Centineo, but he's probably locked up for the next 5 years with Netflix stuff, is my guess. So yeah, but he's who I always had in my head for that one.
Okay, well, everybody is loving those choices, I think,
Oh, good.
particularly for Grace. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, like her face is copy pasted for me again. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because we often ask that question and people are like, you know, the authors are like, oh no, you know, I don't really, it's just their own person. And I'm like, come on, you have to, I mean,
oh no,
just as I'm reading any book,
yeah.
like I envision a character. So
total same. Yeah.
Yeah. We were just reading or we just did We Are the Brennans last night, and you know, it's an Irish Catholic family, and for me, I was like, Wahlbergs.
Definitely.
Wahlberg. Yeah, Mark.
Yep.
Johnny's cast in this, so it was funny. So yeah. Okay, so we always love to ask this question, and because I think you're relatively new in this process, or, you know, really developing your career. We have a lot of members that want to take a chance at writing. So how did you, you know, take that leap? I know you write with a cohort, or, you know, a group that you rely on immensely. And how did you talk about how you found them and all of that?
Absolutely. I've always known that I wanted to be a writer. And I've always also been a big time person who is a worker. I've been working since I was 14. So finding the time is the number one priority. It's always been difficult. And weirdly, it actually got easier for me to find the time to write once I had kids, which is very counterintuitive to most people's experiences. So I will say that, like, with a bit of a disclaimer. I did get my MFA right out of college because I knew I wanted to write. But again, my dad died right at in the middle of that, like right before I started my thesis. And I didn't have the stones basically from there to write for a long time. I wrote like personal essays and stuff like that. And I would write down like book ideas. And I've been a voracious reader my whole life. So I started small. I did those personal essays, I did short stories. And then I did this contest, Pitch Wars, where I was this alternate and I met two other alternates there. One of them is Laura Taylor Namey. She's another young adult writer. And she did The Library of Lost Things, and Reese Witherspoon picked her next book, The Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, which came out last November. Her next book is coming out this November. So she and then our other friend Allison, who's another writer, we are trading ideas and concepts in pages every single day. We have probably the longest running Twitter DM, like in terms of data storage, that anybody ever has had, because that's our platform. But you got to find your people. And I always recommend finding the people who are willing to trade, because there are some people who just want you to read and critique their stuff. Like, find people who your strengths are similar or completely different. And same thing with your weaknesses. And I mean, there's always the advice of like, you can't fix something that hasn't been written already. So the first step is just to get it on the page. I dictate in my phone during daycare pickups and drop-offs. I write it anytime we travel. My husband's a driver and I write in the passenger seat. Like, half of my next book was written in the passenger seat on the way to the Cape to visit my in-laws. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's interesting with all of our chats, the importance of, kind of having a group of people to rely on, and the importance that plays, particularly I think with some of the historical novelists that we spoke to. I mean, Kate Quinn, it resonated with, and just the importance of having those people to bounce the ideas off. And I think I saw on your Instagram recently, I think you were out for a run and you commented like, got to get rid of the writer's block. So that was really interesting to me too, like, right?
Yes, I'm a big exerciser. I teach dance, I run, I do everything I can to get my body moving. I find the best ideas come in the shower too, because it's like the only time I'm not distracted. But absolutely, I mean, and that's why I think it's weird for me, but that having the kids, I was all of a sudden able to write because I knew it was such a priority for me, and time is so precious that it was something that filled me creatively. And so that's when I did it. Like 3 a.m. while nursing my son, I was typing into my phone that I would then actually handwrite out and then retype. So yeah, fits and starts, right where you can.
Yeah, but that's what's so important, right? Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that this book community and the community of authors, again, looking from the outside in, but everybody that I've kind of had the good fortune of talking to this year, everybody seems to really lift each other up. Nothing seems to be a contest, or, nobody seems to be competing with one another. And I have found that to be so empowering, and just gives me the warm and fuzzies, right? Like I knew I loved books for a reason, and like, I love that everybody supports each other. So,
well, it's so wonderful, because I mean, imagine like trying to be in competition with somebody for like pretending that a reader bought 1 book a year. Like, there are readers who read 300 books a year, so
right.
There's not like one spot to fill. I've met so many authors this year who I never would have been able to meet and talk about like those things that we just talked about, finding time while writing as parents, like just so many people who I never, ever would have talked to, and especially debuting during a pandemic, like that was a whole other ballgame. And so there's a whole group of us who's, we're called the 20 Wonders, and we're like middle grade and YA authors, and we trade marketing ideas, and we talk about like how to ban Goodreads from your computer and like all these little things. no shame to Goodreads, but terrible to read reviews if they're not good.
Mm-hmm.
All these little things like what Canva color are you using, that people just lift each other up and trade info. It's a beautiful thing. We're a community for sure.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I'll just let you know that I have a voracious boy teen reader.
Mm-hmm.
Goodreads doesn't exist in his eyes, and
True,
yeah,
true.
so I don't think your audience is there.
It's not on my computer right now because it's too much for me. But yeah.
So what are you working? I know you're working on something right now, and I think you're getting close to wrapping the. Where are you in the process, and can you tell us any details?
Yes. So I just kicked my, I think, second revision back to my editor this week, a week ago, and we had a new title change. So it's now, my next book is coming out in winter 2023. It is called The Other Side of Infinity. And it is a book that follows, it's a dual point of view book. One of them, it's another YA. It's a lifeguard who hesitates when making a save. And then a 17-year-old girl named December who has precognition. So she knows all of the events that will ever happen for all time. And she makes the save instead. And that creates a whole like a butterfly effect of events from there. So that is, I mean, it's written, it's in the editorial process right now. I think the next is another round of edits maybe, or copy edits will be coming up, but we're hoping to be done by the new year. So a full year in advance, of publication.
Awesome. I meant to ask, how involved were you with this cover design? Because it's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I was sent a very similar sketch to what you see in front of you, except the silhouette was a little bit different and the font was different. They asked for my input, and the artist, his name is Dion MBD, was so brilliant. It was beyond anything I could have ever imagined. My cover for my next book should be hitting my inbox this fall. So I'm already like, I don't understand how that, like what's coming. That's like one of my favorite parts for sure. But yeah, I love what he did and what the art direction did at Macmillan. They just did such a beautiful job.
Awesome. That's got to be like your little present, right, to your baby. It's like, the bow for all your hard work is probably to get that cover. So that's got to be so fun.
Yes, for sure. And seeing like how it was brought to life it's like mind blowing. It's my favorite part when all of my friends get their covers now and we share them ahead of time. I'm like, exactly. Yeah. Yes, you got it. Yeah.
Well, and I think they've come so far. I don't know. I just think back to like, I don't know. When I was a teenager, the book covers weren't nearly as fantastic as they are now. So
I know.
Maybe they play such an important role.
They do.
All right.
They do.
Yeah. So that somebody picks it up off the shelf, right? Especially for, a topic like,
packaging a heavy topic of suicide in a kind of hopeful and humorous way. It's they nailed it. Yeah.
All right. Well, yes, everybody's saying yes, they did nail it, and everybody loves the cover too. So that's good.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. So before we wrap, we always love to end with tell us what you're currently reading and any book recommendations you care to share. And I think in your case, I would love for you to share like a couple young adult, but also, maybe some adult fiction, because I know you're an avid reader just like I am. So
I am. Yeah.
What are you loving in
genres? My third book is adult too. So no plans on that one yet, but it's coming. I'm currently reading, I have all my books here, The Mothers by Britt Bennett, awesome. Which I'm halfway through. I read in reverse. The Vanishing Half is her other one. I love that one. I went to that one. So that one is adult. My next one is a YA. This is an early read. I'm sorry, but this is my friend Laura Taylor Namey. This is coming out in November. It's called When We Were Them. And it's this like very beautifully packaged upmarket book about friendships and betrayal. And it takes place in San Diego where Laura lives. And it's so well done. My next one is another YA with a bit of a speculative element called Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon. It is a very similar, it's a comp title for my next book that's coming out. It's got a really cool element involved in there. It kind of bends the world a little bit, but this is so beautifully well done. And I've got two more. One of them is The Push by Ashley Audrain. I know this one's very popular, but I flew through this book in a way that I haven't. This is the book that broke my reading block. So thank you. And then the last one that I'm going to push is one of my co-agented authors, Lisa Cross Smith, This Close to Okay. This was another book of the month. It's up for, I think, a book of the year. But it was so well done. And it also tackles some mental health themes that are very near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to push that one too.
Oh, I will check that out. Yeah, we chatted with Ashley, gosh, back maybe April. She was one of our early authors. Yeah, that obviously had, you know, all the mamas, you know, some were like triggered and trigger warnings.
Totally.
And
absolutely.
It's a good book though, for sure.
But the writing in that book just absolutely captivated me. I thought it was so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And
thank you for having me.
As I mentioned, I will champion this book on and on and on.
Thank you so much.
Every time a teenager comes to my house, I'm going to be like, you need to read this book.
Yes.
And the mothers, you know, of those teenagers.
It's so important.
So important. So thank you so much. And we will be cheering for you. And, you know, when the next book comes out, I'll definitely reach out and see if we can have you.
Yes, keep all the Peloton moms conversations happening. I get so many book recommendations from you guys now. I love it. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yes.
I love hearing that. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.